The Summer Hikaru Died by Mokumokuren is a recent horror manga that caught my attention. The main reason being its focus towards body horror and the use of the phenomenon known as the Uncanny Valley. Body horror is already well established in manga, Junji Ito's works demonstrating its strength in petrifying an audience, creating unsettling imagery that sticks with you forever. But to an extent, even manga like Parasite, Dorohedoro or Land of the Lustrous later in the series delved into the subgenre to invoke heightened responses from the reader through haunting imagery. A gothic and horror academic researcher, Xavier Aldana Reyes, described the notion of body horror perfectly in the Palgrave Handbook of Contemporary Gothic. Body horror's workings involve the inscription of horror onto the human body by virtue of a change, or series of them, that transforms the perceived normal body into a negatively exceptional and/or painful version of itself. And you see this within stories like The Enigma of Amigara Fault, one of Ito's more terrifying tales that leads you to squirm in disgust and dread as you watch hundreds of people shape into horrific deformities. The Uncanny Valley, however, is used for a different effect, though it can somewhat bleed into the body horror subgenre at times. It's relatively uncommon within manga, ironic given the Uncanny Valley hypothesis was proposed in Japan by roboticist Masahiro Mori. Researchers and scientists alike have analysed and studied the origins and/or meaning of the occurrence, the most conclusive interpretation being an evolutionary ingrained discomfort in witnessing human-like attributes to something not entirely human, or perhaps something trying to replicate the human self. Some great examples would be the films Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Vivarium, and Annihilation. Perhaps it's my personal fears in the mix, but Uncanny Valley differentiates itself from body horror, in particular to this story, through having a being trying to replicate the human self. The idea of something non-human trying to fit in within our society is somewhat more threatening than just showing off its true horrific form, and in The Summer Hikaru Died, it's there as an ambiguous threat throughout the narrative. Because body horror is very visceral and distinct in the pages it's shown, as opposed to the Uncanny Valley effect that is more subtle, but nonetheless just as frightening, as seen through the eyes of young Yoshiki. To support this theory, Mokumokuren had this to say in an interview. "I really like ethnic horror, horror that can be explained and horror that can be unravelled. But it's the unexplained horror that I find frightening at first glance. In The Summer Hikaru Died, I tried to include both." And this story very much covers the came back wrong trope. It's a narrative following the basis of a loved one having come back from the dead, but with something off about them. Through mixing the elements of body horror and the Uncanny Valley, Mokumokuren delves into the horrors of grief and loss, but also the guilt in holding on and refusing to let someone dear go, even when you know something is wrong. Just a quick disclaimer to help with confusion. For the purpose of this video, given the original Hikaru died and something else now takes his physical form, I'll be calling the original Hikaru and the new version of Hikaru Unuki, as that's the cursed name referenced multiple times in the manga. Body horror within The Summer Hikaru Died is mostly seen through the black, deformed pattern that's so terrifying yet entrancing, demonstrating a layer of otherness shown through the mimic that is Unuki. Whether unintentional or not, the organic, dripping look resembles the symbiotes in Marvel, who, funnily enough, are also non-human forms who bond with their hosts. The matter stretches and twirls in an abnormal fashion, the black imagery so prominent on each page that it feels so foreign when applied to normal environments, and a normal teenage boy. Mokumokuren mentioned using solid colours when depicting a gloomy atmosphere, and as the manga is well lit given the summer season, the gooey alien-like matter is always contrasted harshly during every appearance. It's an illustrative style that feels so unnatural, an irregular patterning contrasting reality that really enhances the horror vibe. But it also feels so confining, something with a mind of its own always looking to entrap or attach, that you see the visceral panic it evokes in Yoshiki so often. Which is the main dilemma of the narrative. Can Yoshiki place his trust in a subhuman who, yes, may appear relatively normal and innocent, but will also extract a nightmarish substance, whiplashing you into the reminder of Unuki's true form. And the body horror displayed through the pattern is a direct choice from the mangaka. Its irregularity is a purposeful style influenced by fractal shapes, such as the Sierpinski gasket. Mokumokuren talks about the cellular look in several interviews, but most notably clarified that the pattern was chosen due to its resemblances of nature, authentic patterns you'll see via the veins of leaves or the shapes of vegetables. Or even, to an extent, Lichtenberg figures that, whilst natural, have an eerie supernatural look. The interviews themselves are super interesting, so I'd recommend reading the English translations by levbolton, which will be in my sources link found in my description. But, back to the point, the fractal styling of the substance is the perfect impression of otherness regarding Unuki's replacement of Hikaru. I would even argue the style replicated the visuals of cells viewed under a microscope, which, again, I've always found to look eerie despite being natural. And even that is a play on pareidolia, a somewhat cousin of the Uncanny Valley, where humans are able to distinguish specific imagery from random patterns whilst feeling an unease with such. So being able to identify cells or even octopus tentacles within the pattern, despite that not being purposeful, makes it essential in furthering your discomfort. It works so fittingly towards enhancing the body horror throughout the series, continuously sending chills down your spine and increasing anxiousness, and yet, you're not able to look away. Linking perfectly to the next segment, which is the application of the Uncanny Valley. As mentioned earlier, Uncanny Valley is a phenomenon where something, often mostly observed through robots or animation, tries to replicate humans, and our natural instinct is to be creeped out by it. Rather than robots or animation, all things man-made of which we have control over creating, the summer Hikaru died mixes the Uncanny Valley with the supernatural through Unuki, whose race is unknown besides being called a messed-up ghoulie. And this foreign element to the narrative dips its toes into horror's abyss. Unuki isn't something neither we as readers nor Yoshiki can understand. We can't predict their drive, their reason for being, their objective or purpose. And that's the terrifying conundrum. Unuki may confess to never having killed Hikaru and may act affectionate with no devious bad intentions, but it's that lingering Uncanny Valley effect that itches the brain, a continuous suspicion ingrained into our being that never trusts something trying to replicate us. We instantly see them as a threat, because why would anyone replicate if not to utilise or abuse? What good is there in Unuki puppeting a dead body, other than a cunning scheme? And despite very minute changes on the outside, Yoshiki is able to identify a change in this fake Hikaru instantly, knowing from the moment Unuki took over that his best friend was gone. Because the mind is brilliant at observing the uncanny, it's little slips in mannerisms, weird choices of speech Hikaru never would have uttered that give Unuki away. A physical form can be taken over, but the soul of a person isn't as easy to emulate, if possible at all, given its uniqueness to each individual. Yet despite this, Unuki as a being is very self-aware, being flat out truthful to Hikaru the moment they're found out, leaving an ambiguity to their character. They understand the nuance in replacing a life, and yet still wish to experience human activities, to bond with Yoshiki and go about life as if it's normal, which, for a foreign being, genuinely might be a normal concept for them. But it's the occasional stare, an offhand threat or inhuman reactions that holds a tension in the air. Mokumokuren doesn't rely on jump scares, instead they rely on the cryptic vibes felt when observing Unuki. A continuous battle on Yoshiki's behalf, a sense of falsified trust in believing the supposed innocence of Unuki, or whether to believe the guttural instincts that are warning him to stay away. This wouldn't be as effective if Mokumokuren solely relied on body horror. It's the added layer of wavering trust and tension caused by the Uncanny Valley effect that heightens the horror of the story. First and foremost, to me, the main focus of the manga is towards Yoshiki's confused feelings towards both Hikaru and Unuki. The manga centres around Yoshiki's grief, particularly of a boy he clearly had a crush on, contrasting his confusion towards Unuki, who taunts that weakness through imitation. Unaki does hint at harbouring feelings Hikaru may have reciprocated when alive, Hikaru's memories mixing with Unaki's that influence their decisions and feelings. Because of this, Unaki's affectionate moments unintentionally exploit Yoshiki's emotions, perhaps without even really knowing the basis of what love is, or what it feels like, given they're a non-human entity. And this is only being further clarified by the mangaka on Twitter, who reiterated that Hikaru doesn't understand romantic feelings, so the feelings might be attachment that had sunk in from prior existence of Hikaru. And it's true, Unuki is a hollow reenactment of Hikaru, but grief is overwhelming and unmeasurably painful, being one of the hardest emotions to overcome. It can get easier with time, sure, but when the physical form of a loved one returns, still breathing, talking, laughing, even recalling memories with vague emotions attached, it's no surprise Yoshiki is in turmoil throughout the series. Perhaps the odd occasion of weird, black alien-like patterning is the price to pay for seeing Hikaru, even if it's not his Hikaru. Yoshiki not only has to deal with the horrifying body horror Unuki lures him into time and again, but he observes these small mistakes in Unuki's imitations that reveals the true devilish form beneath, really capturing the disturbing nature of the Uncanny Valley too. I'm only just realising you can't see my Christmas jumper very well. It's a Batman one. Anyways, thank you guys for watching to the end of the video. As always, I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. But for Patreon, I'm going to be putting up a poll in the next few days as to whether I'm going to cover Claymore first or After God first as part of my 4 manga series that I'm doing. So if you want a chance to vote in that poll, I'll put my Patreon link in the description. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know a lot of people were actually really excited for this one. I really loved the manga when I read it, and I knew instantly that I was going to do a video on it. So I hope it met your expectations. Hopefully. I wanted to end this outro just saying thank you to you guys. I managed to hit 90k after the last video, which is mind-boggling to me. That is so many eyes on my videos, so many people who have clicked subscribe on the channel, and I absolutely appreciate every single person who did that, everyone who shares, everyone who comments, and I see a lot of you guys returning in my comment section. I know a lot of names and I recognize a lot of profile pictures, and I appreciate everyone who comes along to every single video and trusts my recommendations or my opinions, etc. I do really genuinely appreciate that. But yeah, to end on that note, I'm so grateful, and I hope you guys have a lovely new year, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.